Welcome aboard The Nichole Show with host Nichole Hamilton. Our task is to educate, empower, and change lives. Join us for stories of resilience and rebirth. Honest talks that inspire and challenge you. Are you ready to make a move? It begins now. Welcome back, guys, to The Nichole Show, where we dive deep and kind of go behind the mask of business, coaching, and really speak about the vulnerable topics that I personally have also struggled with talking about. And today I'm actually a little nervous because I have my coach and mentor, Travis Bell, the bucket list guy, with us. And he is an author, a public speaker worldwide, an amazing mentor and man that I've met and only known for the last couple of years. And so it's really cool. We're going to dive deep. I'm going to ask him some questions, but I also would like Trav to ask me some questions so we can have that common ground and talk about, things that are going to make a difference, land on people's ears so they don't feel so alone. So welcome, Trav, first of all.
Thank you, Nichole. Stoked to be on. Here we go. This is going to be an interesting conversation for sure.
It is. And just remember, this is, a safe space. Feel free to divulge as much or as little as you like. If there's anything you don't want to say, don't say it. It's all good.
Pretty much an open book these days. When you speak on stages around the world and, from 5 people to 500 people, 5,000 people, as you know, the more vulnerable and open, authentic you are, the more you can impact people. So whether it be podcasts like this, whether it be from stage, it doesn't matter. And so I've had to, take that vulnerability muscle to the gym over the last 15 years of being the bucket list guy.
A little bit more about you. I personally just want to go for the question that I had was, what was the hardest challenge you've had to date? Like the biggest challenge that you've had and the tools you use to overcome it?
Wow. Answering that question. The biggest challenge. Not
just in business, can be personal, but yeah, the biggest thing.
For sure. Look, probably the biggest challenge that I've had, apart from all the physical stuff that I sign up for, and Ironmans and Everest and big waves and stuff like that. That's all, I elected to do that. I signed up for it, but I didn't sign up for depression. And I spent the first 20 years of my working life. So I grew up here in Ocean Grove, which is about an hour and a half out of Melbourne, here in Victoria. And I grew up as a surfer. I still surf every day. Grew up as a jock pretty much, did a phys ed degree, started personal training in the early 90s when there wasn't, all these personal trainers running around Melbourne. I was one of the first personal trainers running around Melbourne. So I was always a fitness guy. Started with one client and she referred everyone in the English-speaking language and then some to my business. So I think my record was 63 one-hour mobile personal training sessions in a week. I did that for about 3 years, just absolutely cooked myself. Started bringing staff on, other personal trainers. One of the first personal training studios in Melbourne. We had 13 trainers in there. Then I franchised a year later. And we had a chain of 22 personal training studios around Australia, about 300 personal trainers working there, under that umbrella. That was my first business. And then some quite cancerous people joined our network, let's put it that way. And it became a little bit of a tail wagging the dog kind of situation. I want everyone to be friends and I want everyone to get along, but they had other plans and they sort of turned everyone against me in my own business. And as a result, I started to really get down about it. And there was some other personal stuff, relationship stuff going on in my life. And one thing led to another. And, it's all of our own perception. When I say depression, mine was very mild compared to what I've heard since and what you've been around as well. I mean, but it's, our own perception is our own reality, right? So I was in a pretty dark place for me. And instead of going on like heavy antidepressants, which I trained a lot of clients on antidepressants, going through mental health at the time. And this is before mental health was actually a thing. You just buried it back then and you got on with it. So for me, it was instead of going on heavy antidepressants, I then, instead of going on the drugs, I just went right into personal development. I had to force myself out of bed in the morning, had to, really, really dig deep, and discover what was going on. I wanted to get to the cause, not just put a Band-Aid over the top of the effect. So I did all that for about 3 years, discovered went deep, but then that changed my life. That was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, is get myself out of that hole instead of going on drugs. And personally, and I was in one of these seminars and we just hugged it out and high-fived it with strangers and, walked on fire or something like that. And we've all been at these seminars. We both run them, I think. And at the end of the day, a friend of mine said, Trav, why don't you teach this shit? You're in these seminars that you've invested so much money in, all right, find out about yourself. Why don't you teach this? And I went, bing, light bulb moment. And I was shit scared of public speaking. That was probably the hardest challenge I had to overcome. Was a month later, I took all my entrepreneurial stuff and all the NLP and the life coaching and the positive psychology I've been around and everything else. I put it into a 3-hour talk, and someone at the end of the talk called me the bucket list guy. And that's how that actually started. But I was shit scared of public speaking because I was no good at it growing up. At school, I was always ducked and weaved as best I could. But public speaking for me, I cannot believe, and people who I know from around here are like, you, a public speaker? Like you, I was very shy. And yeah, that was probably the biggest challenge, to be honest. But that was for me.
Is it your favorite thing to do now?
It's my cocaine, Nick. It's my flow state. It is my thing that really lights me up. Probably shouldn't use cocaine as a reference, but you know what I mean.
I get it.
It's dopamine plus, and the fact that I get to coach one to many via the stage, and we, Mick Hale chests me high with flow state, talks about that is my zone. That's when I can be my best vulnerable, authentic, helping people state. But that was the big, that event, me going, yes, I'm going to be a public speaker, was my big domino that I had to push over in my life, that then sent off a heap of momentum. I defranchised the personal training, got out of personal training and went online 13, 14 years ago as the bucket list guy, not knowing how the hell it was going to turn out, but it felt right. So here we are.
I love that. And from my experience, you're amazing at coaching others, and really, you have the bucket list and you help other people brand and really own their essence and their power. I want to know, how do you feel about your name, the bucket list guy?
Most people know me as the bucket list guy. They don't even know my freaking name. So
talk about both, but yeah, when people say the bucket list guy, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's a good point. What it makes me do is makes me step up into my own superhero-ness. It makes me put on on a cape that I created, this superhero persona, as weird as that sounds, but a bigger persona than myself, a big shoes to fill. So, and that's what I encourage everyone to do is with this, branding stuff, and you're the kids coach and stuff. It makes you step up, doesn't it? It makes you own a space that the imposter syndrome, you sure? You sure you're that, but it's got to help you step up and step out into the bigger version of yourself. That's what a personal brand does. And certainly the bucket list guy, and and I've made it even worse for myself, because on my book it actually says the world's #1 bucket list expert. But I made that up. when I registered the bucketlistguy.com, I was like on Google and I'm like, who's like the Mac Daddy? Who's like the king of bucket lists in the world? Oh my God, no one. So I called myself the world's #1 bucket list expert. And now no one else is doing it. So stuff it, I will. So, but it makes me step up and step out into the bigger version of myself, into my own potential. And it gives me license to really be the unique me and the weird me. And the fact that I get to run around the world doing my bucket list, ticking stuff off, and then people pay me to turn up and speak about it, it's insane. And I get to write it all off on tax. Hello.
Even better, guys. Um, yeah, so what I'm hearing is the biggest challenge, led you to your greatest success by
Yep.
stepping into that. And, we're talking here about, people that, you know, have businesses and the rest. But what I really loved what you were saying about the name, the bucket list guy, helps you step into your superhero-ness. For anybody else that's listening, how do they step into their like superhero-ness?
Mm.
But like, oh, that's amazing, Trav. Like you've got your business, but I don't want to have one. You know,
Yeah.
um, how do others step into their? Because I have an idea about it, but I'd love to know what you think. Like, how do others step into into their name or into their superhero?
Well, even with you, Nick, we kicked around the kids coach, and that's that's a big brand. How does that feel for you?
At the moment, actually, a little limiting. Yeah, because I love it and I know that it's a phenomenon for around the world. And that's, I guess, why I've brought this podcast in because there's so many different other facets to Nichole. And
Oh, there is.
yeah, there are. And we'll get to that over the segments and the things. But um, I really wanted to talk about all the things, being the kids coach and helping kids definitely is my passion. It's like you said, that light up moment, your cocaine, my dopamine. Out of all the entrepreneurial things that I can come across, when a kid picks me and I get to hold space for them in that personal development world and we
Mm,
play a game or do whatever, I cry with happiness. But I'm just really learning and having some healings now on all the things that I do as a coach and really trying to blend the both. And that's why I've got this platform. So I want to talk about
mm,
everything about me, all the diverse areas,
mm.
the depression, like you said, how did I get through that, the
Yeah.
sobriety, the LGBT community, all the things that, make me a mother, the challenges of meltdowns, depression myself,
Well,
ADHD,
let's flip the script. Let's flip the script. Biggest challenge for you. Go.
biggest challenge for me.
Mind you, guys, listeners, girls, everyone in between. I'm right. I do my own podcast. I'm always asking questions. This is good. We can flip the script a little bit and go back and forth. Biggest challenge. Go.
Challenge is talking about all sides of myself and being scared of being judged. I believe that I have the strength and a voice to bring to all different dimensions of humanness. And a lot of the things I have spoken about, like sobriety, drug addiction, bits and pieces of depression, but the next realm and fame that I want to talk to is about owning all parts of a woman, her sexiness, non-monogamy, because if you dull or
What was that last one?
non-monogamy,
I
so
can't even say that right. Jeez, I gotta.
so yeah, there's parts and places around sexuality and tantric and your energies. If you're, I believe, if I'm denying any part of myself, then that does really have an impact on my mental health. Because I compartmentalized myself into such the kids coach, I wasn't posting my pole dancing, I wasn't talking about things like
Mm,
relationship coaching, things that have really impacted me and how I show up in the world.
mm.
That's just, yeah. So for me, I'm having this platform to speak openly so that all parts of me are seen, which is totally fucking scary because people are going to judge, I assume. But I really do believe I've got the strength to talk about everything that's thrown at me.
But also, that's interesting because I've got some dark sides as well. But you don't have to share everything. Just because social media exists, you don't have to share everything. You can share it if you want to, if it helps. I just share it because it helps people. Um, but
Believe we're similar in that vein, though. I really have been diving deep on this through this journey and creating these podcasts. And I really believe that it is having the voice to speak about all different parts of myself and
Mm.
give that a voice, because there's other people, if I'm going through it, there's other people that are going through it. And it has affected my mental health and it has affected my relationships
Got
when
to
I
be
know I
constructive.
have
Yeah.
shame about any part of me. So, of course, I don't need to give all the details and all the stuff. I get that. But just being all around and opening up those conversations so people don't feel so alone,
Yeah.
which will
Yeah.
lead
And
into a book eventually, maybe. But yeah, it has been really scary for me to, because I love bringing personal love to kids. I love motherhood, but if I'm not all rounded, I
mm.
I do slide back into depression as well.
And if you're not afraid, then yeah, bugger it. Just put it out there. And at the end of the day, as long as it's constructive, I'm telling you about this part of me that hopefully gives you permission to open up about that part of you as well, if you see that in yourself. And if it opens up a conversation, in a person that they've been harboring or they've been um, kept down, then sweet. That's what it's all about. You sort of got to, I'll show you mine before you show me yours kind of deal.
No, but I really do believe that, like, leading the way and speaking from my heart and not holding any, hiding any pieces of me is a part of my journey.
Mm.
And again, this is a beautiful platform for that, to like talk about, I believe the best coaches and the best mentors and the best, people that we role model are the ones that are walking the walk, that talk the talk and continue to grow and evolve and be embodied. And if I don't keep talking about what I'm going through, then that for me, this is my therapy too. I really do get to present who.
Yeah. The incongruency, I've seen some very incongruent experts out there in the world. I mean, I've shared the stage with, for instance, I've shared the stage with health speakers, and they're like all that on stage talking about health. And I've seen health speakers get off stage and light up a cigarette. It's so fucked. And or they get, another health speaker get off stage and then at the after party, get blind and then try and root everyone, you know? And well, yeah, I mean, if that's the thing, just be like, don't give us some fake. And I think that's in the so actually a question on I'm keynoting a conference this weekend. It's a 4-day conference. It's like a TED talk, 4-day TED talk on steroids. And it's called the International Conference on Thinking, right? Big mouthful, but there's there's all these smart people with PhDs and Harvard and books and me, and I'm opening the whole conference. So this is going to be interesting. But the question that we all have to ask as presenters and then present around is, what are we on the edge of? That's the theme of the conference. And a lot of these conferences have themes. What are we on the edge of? We're going to bleed that into our presentations. And I think we're on the edge of what we're talking about right here, Nick, is on the edge of truth, of vulnerability, of openness, because you can't hide even if you try these days. You'll always be found out. We've seen that from celebrities and, like just be you, God, and let the chips fall where they may.
Is seen as such a weakness. Um, I mean, I've been, go, go, go. And I guess if people were watching and, business minded, but I found such a peace in being vulnerable and saying where things are at instead of having, I'm only going to post the good times or what's going on in business or the rest. I think it's really helped my own healing and my own just energy of just
Yeah,
being
and look,
deeply honest of where things are at.
mm,
But yeah, so being on the edge, what's your edge at the moment though? So you think everybody's on the edge of being honest and open and vulnerable. What's your edge? What are you leaning into right now?
yeah, and on just on to cap that off, haters are going to hate no matter what, and they're going to project their own insecurities on hating, by hating on you. So the bigger, the brighter you shine, the more that's going to happen. That's just part of the deal. You'll get your trolls, you'll get your people, you get blah blah, blah, and you've had all that. So that's actually a really good indication that you're on the right track. So um,
Working on as well is my own resilience. Like, am I
Yeah.
prepared? I posted a video the other day, I don't know if you saw it, with Aurora swearing. She's 3.5 and she said fuck. But she's only allowed to say it as a home word in the safety of our house. But it gives her such euphoria, and she just says it with such clarity, and she screams it with her primal scream. And I thought, you know what? I am the kids coach, and I could be ridiculed for this, and if that's what I go viral for, but I was like, I'm actually prepared to wear that because it's making a difference for her. I'm not
Mm.
judging any other parents. That's what we're doing in our home. So I feel like I'm building the confidence and the resilience to put more of myself out there, which is kind of cool and scary at the same time.
Yeah. What
So
are we on the
what are you leaning into? What is your well, even if it's anything new on the horizon, but
look? This is a personal one. I'm a stepdad. I'm adopted. I haven't got any of my own natural kids,
Mhm,
and I've got with my partner Tracy. She brought 4 kids into my life. I'm a stepdad to 4 kids.
mhm,
One's 20. So I've been on the job as a parent,
mhm.
step parent, for 6 years. Absolutely changed my life, and I feel like I'm paying it forward. I was adopted, and I haven't officially, legally adopted them, but they're as good as. And they absolutely gave me a whole other. I get it now as a parent. I get it, and I didn't get it. And the cool thing about that is that what do we got? Charlie, he's 27, James 26, and we've got James and Darcy, the two 17-year-old boys who was 18 in 6 months. So we're now having empty nest conversations. What the fuck do we do when there's no kids? And Tracy, my partner, she's been a mum for 27 years. So there's this whole identity crisis going on. And we're like, oh my God, the kids are, they're probably they'll go on with their own lives, maybe uni or, blah, 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 move out of home, whatever. But I'm like, holy shit, what are we, who are you again? What are our goals? And so the next 6 months, I'm on the edge of I've started a lot of very interesting empty nest conversations lately. Very interesting conversations happening, and that's just the way it goes. So uh,
Beautiful though, because I don't even know if a lot of couples would have those conversations. It's something that happens to all of us. There's changes.
weird combo.
Yeah. Um, that reconnection. Abs and I just had a date night last night, and the boys were at their dad's, and Aurora had a night off, and we don't get that very often. And it is really nice to be just us, but you're going to have so much more time for that. I love
Yeah,
hearing
and
about,
can you have a date night and not talk about the kids? That's a challenge.
yeah, yeah, you're really getting to, we all change, right? Like, so it's really getting to re-know our partner. Um,
Mm.
I'd love to ask you a question. So Abby's a step parent to my boys and has been for 9 years, and um, she carried Aurora biologically, so I'm like the second parent. But I remember the time that I fell in love with Aurora. Do you remember the time that you fell in love with the kids? Because you would have had to have an integration, because that was really profound for me. Do you remember the time you're like, oh my God?
I do actually. Um, because I was like, what the fuck? I've got 2 boys. Like, I've never lived with, on and off, but I've never really lived with the older kids. They were already out of home. But then 2 twin boys in grade 5 or 6 moved from the country down to my house, into my house. And I was full bachelor, not living the bachelor life, I wish. But I'm a very clean freak, and I had everything like minimal and da, da, da.
Probably like it in
Fucking-
certain
and
ways.
the cyclone started of toys and videos and video games, et cetera, et cetera. One bike went to fucking 6 and everything else. But then when they went off in their when they went off to primary school for the first time.
Hey everyone, Nichole here, and I hope you're enjoying today's episode. I just want to take a quick moment to talk to you all. If you're finding value in our conversations and loving the raw, honest dialogues we're having here, I've got a small favor to ask. This podcast is a passion project for me, and there's nothing I love more than bringing these stories and insights to you. So if you haven't already, would you consider subscribing to our show and leaving a review? It's completely free and it doesn't take much time, but it really helps us in two big ways. It's getting the podcast in front of more listeners, which keeps our community growing. It helps us attract more amazing guests, which means we give you more value in the episodes we bring to you. Just hit that subscribe button, drop us a review, and let's keep these conversations flowing. Now let's dive right back into our episode, and thanks so much of being a part of the Nichole's Show.
And we got the in their new outfit, new primary school, grade 5 or grade 6, I think, and they're in their little uniform. I'm like, okay, I get it. This is proud dad moment. That makes me emotional. Yeah, and I've still got the photo, one of my favorite photos. So that's when I went, okay, I get it now. And I'm like waiting for them to get home, and like doing all that. I think I went and picked them up at school, and that literally the school was a block away. So, and one of the, and they're funny too. So, and Tracy's packing them lunches, and I did this. I did one of the scariest things I've ever done. I did a stand-up comedy routine. Right, I did that out of COVID, and it was on my bucket list for over 8 years, and I finally ticked it off after COVID. And one of the jokes that I told was the fact that I was a new parent, and Tracy, who was very much on and they were in the audience, by the way. And so Tracy, very experienced parent, and like hands down, like amazing. The kids have all turned out unbelievable. She's packed their little school lunches and everything. She's been doing it for years, and I'm like, I didn't know what I was doing, so I just packed a rape whistle. I didn't, but I wanted to. So when they left for their first day of school, I've got, boys, you got your rape whistle? I don't know.
Yeah,
I just want to protect you. Just
you could probably hear it a block away.
that's it. Yeah.
I'm running.
So
I do love that. While we're on the topic of like family, and we are going deep, Abby's adopted as well. I'd love to know, like, did you ever research and find your
you already know this. Do you already know this?
I don't know it.
Shit.
No, I don't. I didn't know if you found your biological parents.
Fucking hell. All right. Well, here we go. I didn't know we were going to go this deep, but we're here. Okay, quick story. I need a drink. So, in 1973, and in the 70s, it was like the thing to adopt. My adopted parents, who adopted me, who I grew up with, and my biological. So my biological mum and dad had an older sister. Her name's Kim. She's 5 years older than me. Legally, I've known my environmental parents, so the parents I grew up with, always told me I was adopted. I knew from birth pretty much, or as long as I can remember. Mum, who I grew up with, she couldn't have kids, blah blah blah. So they adopted me and my younger sister, and she's from another family. When you turn 18, they can legally, connect with you and that sort of thing. And I didn't really I grew up like in Ocean Grove, surfing, swimming, healthy, great relationship with mum and dad. So I had no big chip on my shoulder to really find out about my natural parents. But when I turned 30, and mind you, I've been getting the Christmas cards and birthday cards, etc. When I turned 30, I just got really curious. I was with a girl at the time, and she'd had a really rough upbringing. And she's like, "What about you with this silver spoon in your mouth?" And I'm like, "I didn't have a silver spoon, I except for the old bastard child thing." And it's like, "Why don't you?" She said, "Why don't you find out about your natural?" No, I was like, Yeah, all right. I just got curious. Rang my natural sister who I was connected to on Facebook, and I said, all right, I think now's the time I find out. I had no idea about my natural parents up to the age of 30. Not denying it, just didn't, there's no space for it. And I rang it, I met her. A couple of days later, we had coffee, and she told me about my natural mum and dad. So when I was born, and she was already on the scene 5 years earlier, she said, well, we didn't have a lot of money, and when you were born, your natural father came out of the closet. Oh, 73. Fuck. And she showed me photos of him, and he was at the mow. He had, like, I think of the bird cage.
Benji, we can
Oh, fucking big time.
yeah.
And I told my mates they had a fucking field day. Um, I had a field day, and but
You ever
I
meet
went,
Tyler?
I went, fucking hell, really? And I said, well, are they still alive? My natural mum and dad. Mum is, I grew up with her, but your dad, unfortunately, in the late 80s, contracted AIDS and died from AIDS. And I'm like, fuck, I would have loved to have met him and say I'm proud of him. That's one of my biggest regrets, is not being able to meet him.
Listening and hearing this from
Okay, you want to get really weird?
yeah, of course, of course.
So I'm like spewing, and apparently my photo was put into his
Oh,
coffin, and he got, I'm like, fucking hell, God, and he set up before he left. Still to this day, he set up the Positive People, the Queensland Positive People Association. You might even be aware of it. It's education around Queensland that is for people with HIV. And it's like this massive legacy that he created. And they send out people to go and talk to groups, about everything. And I'm like, holy fuck. And it's this huge organization. I'm like, wow, he was really a pioneer in this space. And he also pioneered a lot of the HIV drugs, and just said, yep, do it. I want to help other people. And so unfortunately he didn't win the battle. But anyway, so I found that out, was blown away. Okay, met the mother as well. And that was awkward. But then, it would have been probably 5 years ago. I had a keynote presentation to do in Cairns. She told me when he left the family, he went up to Cairns. Apparently, in the 70s and 80s, Cairns was the big, like the gay mecca. So apparently, he went up there, and he was a song and dance man. Like, he was on stage and the whole bit. And here I am as a public speaker. God. And but I had this presentation to do. I had the opening keynote and the closing keynote of this conference for a pharmaceutical company. And I'm like, hands, never been there before. And I'm going to go and visit, meet a personal hero, which is part of my bucket list blueprint. I wanted to go to his gravesite and just have a few words. So I got off stage and went, hey, Kim, whereabouts is he buried? And she said, oh, no, he wasn't buried. He was cremated. I'm like, oh, fuck. And so where'd you spread his ashes? At Mossman Gorge, about an hour up the road. I went, right, I know where that is. So I got off stage and hired the last, and Tracy is with me, hired the last car that this car place had, right? Got there at about 4:45 at Mossman Gorge. Mossman Gorge is an Aboriginal settlement, basically, and they shut the doors at 5 o'clock. So I was on the last bus, just me and Tracy on the last bus. I'm like, please let me on, because I've got to fuck off and go back and do this other presentation. And this is my only opportunity. Last car, last bus, into this place, and they said, what we're going to do is we're going to have to go out and we'll come back in. We're going to literally give you 20 minutes in there, and then we're going to have to shut the gates. Get on this bus, and I'm texting Kim, whereabouts, Mossman Gorge is huge. And then the bars all went on my phone. There was no phone reception in there. Like, God damn, where was this? Where is this? So you go to Mossman Gorge, huge, river, basically, of about half a kilometre of walkway, walking along the river. And I'm like, oh, God damn it. And Tracy's filming me, and I'm, trying to say a few words, walking along, and then suddenly I stop and I burst into tears. And I was uncontrollable. And I went, holy fuck, this is, and I get chicken skin when I even think. I went, there's something, this is weird. I went down to the water, said a few things, said to the camera, this is where my dad, and I got back on the bus, got back into phone service, text Kim, something weird just happened. Over half a kilometre of walkway, I stopped there, and she goes, that's exactly where we spread the ashes. And I went, oh dear, that is freaky. There's a freakiest thing. And I got back to the conference venue, grabbed all the video, put it all together, and that became part of my presentation, my second keynote that I do now. The fact that I got to tick off my bucket list, meeting a personal hero whilst I was at this conference, and there was not a dry eye on the house. So I've kind of met him. So there you go.
Tingles just listening to
how's that for a story?
Listening to you speak, the song. It's amazing. I got tingles just listening to that, and the soul knows, and it's so funny. I have so many other examples, but I have a half brother, and just the things, he was a pioneer in his age and speaking, and the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and regardless of parenthood and adoption, the rest, it's so interesting, the connections that we have with biological or family. So
explains why I have an incredible sense of style, Nick, and why I'm
very extravagant,
why I'm a world-class dancer, especially when it comes to jazz hands. And
correct.
And I don't think I've carried over any of that. You know what I mean? I think I'm fine.
I can see those camp traits a mile away, but it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. Just be you. Just be you. Well, I think that we are well on the way to, diving into some beautiful things around family and goals and just, the rest. The only other thing I have to ask is, if you were to leave this world, and obviously not for many, many years, you've got your bucket list to go, what is the one piece of advice or the one thing that you would, say on your deathbed? Because being the bucket list guy, what was the one thing that you would want the world to know before you left?
Well, the cool thing about what we're doing now, and you're doing it in your own way, as am I, is we're changing the narrative on we're adding to changing the narrative to a certain extent on what people think, and I love extending thought. I love disrupting thought within people. I'd like people to don't wait until someday, the perfect time, and especially a use-by date, to get off your ass and go and chase your dreams. And I said, don't wait until you get a use-by date to go and live your bucket list, of course. We touched on mental health right at the top, and we're in a mental health perfect storm right now. Depression is going through the roof. Anxiety is astronomical. Social media has got a lot to do with that. Suicides, youth suicides, all about. And we now got this, and now we've got this thing called the loneliness epidemic. It's a real thing. Google it, people. The loneliness epidemic. It's the adverse effect of social media. We're all in, comparing our behind the scenes footage with someone else's highlights reel, and it's making us feel insecure. You go throw the fucking pandemic on top of that, and we are in a complete, perfect storm. So if I can offer a tools or another way to think about that to help people be happier now, life's way too short to sacrifice your happiness to enjoy later when later might never come. I want people to be happier now. Like, we only got one life, and we can get into afterlife and conversate, but fuck, like right now, like why are we treating ourselves as second-rate citizens? The world is, having seen a lot of the world and the desperate situations a lot of people in, we need to lean into our strengths, lean into what gives us meaning, purpose, fulfillment, and more gratitude, and basically bleed more of that into our lives and into our work that we do. That's it.
Because, coaching me now, and the question that keeps going around, and it's very similar to this: what are you going to do more of, and what are you going to do less of? Like, it's honestly a thing that I'm thinking of every single day. Like, I'm going to procrastinate less. Like, I'm going to, do the things that light me up the most. And, and it comes into every facet: food, exercise, my relationships, who I'm hanging around, business. What am I doing more of? What am I doing less of? And I really come back to what my heart is desiring in those moments too. So,
well, the homework that I've got of, basically, I haven't given you yet. I'm going to give you this after this call or tomorrow. Okay. Is designing your typical perfect week. Guys, take this home with you and lean into Nick, because she'll be able to help you with this process. But what is your typical perfect week compared to your current week? If you look at your typical perfect week, you're really defining what is your ideal work-life blend scenario, not work-life balance. Nothing ever balances. So what is your definition of work-life blend in this current hybrid kind of situation, where you as a coach or whatever you're doing, you might be working from home, you've got kids, you've got health, you've got relationships. We're always on the digital leash. That's a given.
Yep.
Right? So what are the standards, the rules? What does that look like for you, living your best life? And I do a lot of, coaching around this. And sometimes it's really little tweaks, little 1%ers can make a massive difference in due course. But I encourage everyone to do the comparison between current week that you may hate and the typical perfect week in the future, say 12 months time, that you want to lean into. And now we've got to do what am I going to start doing, stop doing, do more of, do less of, in order to collapse those timeframes, to get to where I want to get to live a happier life. There you go.
Well, thank you so much. Put all your details as well underneath the show notes, because it is about just sharing and caring.
Love it.
Thank you so much for all of that. I'm sure we'll have you on again, because we could talk for hours, but thank you so much, Trav.
No worries, Nick. Thanks heaps.